You are listening to the Success Diaries podcast. I'm your hostess, Bree Seeley, a creative growth strategist and top entrepreneur coach on Google. The Success Diaries is your invitation to do success on your own terms. Every episode features interviews with entrepreneurs and changemakers around the world living their success on their terms. Allie Martin owns Fame and Fortune Brand Management, specializing in digital marketing and public relations. In her free time, she enjoys hosting the podcast Selfish, a show that advocates for self-care and living a life full of grace. Allie has a broadcast journalism degree from Western Kentucky University and an MBA from Midway University. Allie lives in Louisville, Kentucky with her husband Brandon and Labradoodle Henna Sue. Hello, Success Diaries listeners. Bree Seeley again, every week, twice a week, back with a great guest, Miss Allie Martin, who I was actually on her podcast, the Selfish podcast, ages ago. And she reconnected with me and I was like, that was my cat walking on my keyboard. That's awesome. Let's bring you on my podcast. Like, let's share all of your insights. So, hello.
Hey, Bree. Thanks so much. It is so good to reconnect.
Yes. I feel like this is a really good time for people to be like reigniting relationships and coming together and collaborating and partnering. So I'm really, really glad that you reached back out.
That's a great point. It was years ago that we chatted last on Selfish. And so this is a really nice reconnection and being able to catch up on all the things that have been going on in our lives.
I know. So, as you know, and most of my listeners already know, I ask one question and one question only of you. So let's kick it off. What is your definition of success?
Success to me is being aligned and being true to yourself. Not to promote my podcast by any means, but really the reason why I started that was because I felt a calling to really preach the practice of self-care. And whenever you are practicing self-care, you are able to be successful in other areas of your life, whether that is with family, friends, your career. And when you feel like everything is balanced, and I have a unique way of explaining what balance means to me. That to me means that you feel that alignment across the board. And balance, I explained it the other day, and I felt like, oh, maybe this is something I need to share with more people. But it's like riding a bike in the sense of you have to shift your weight from left to right. You push the pedal on the left side, and then as it's down, you're pushing the pedal on the right side. And you never can get to where you're going if you continue to just stay in one side, or if you try to push both sides at once. So I've really just kind of loved that mentality of you may have some weight going on one area of your life, but then you know that you're going to be able to come back on the other side and give more weight to it at some point, whether that's another day, another week, another month, and just always keeping that in mind that it's going to shift back and forth. So to me, success is when you're able to do that, when you're able to be aligned and know that, yes, I'm putting a lot of energy over here, but I know tomorrow or next week I'm able to put more energy over here, and you just feel that peace across all areas of your life.
I love that. I'm such a visual person, so that metaphor for me is like I can see it.
Right.
And it reminded me too, I used to kayak when I lived in Washington, and it was a similar thing where like you take one paddle on the left and you take one paddle on the right. And if you just keep paddling on the left, you just end up going in circles over and over and over again. Yeah. Yeah. So when you find yourself that you're like either paddling or pedaling too hard on the left, is there anything that you do or any practices you have to help you regain that alignment and that balance?
I'm a huge list person. And it's funny, I've always kind of been that way. It was a joke, like when I was a kid, I would like make my to-do list and the first thing on it would be wake up. And my dad would always be like, oh, that's funny. Do you think you're going to forget to do that if it's not on your list? And it's like, no, I really enjoy that crossing off. So it's like, once you wake up, it's like you're already in that mentality of like, oh, I get to just go on and check something off. So for me, I think I've always just gone back to that list because it's almost like you get to do that brain dump on paper, and then you can work through it and be able to just kind of do that mental trick of, I'm being really productive. I'm getting things done. And, if you kind of always go back to that of, okay, I know I can't devote 100% of my attention to this area of my life at this moment, but what are the 3 things that I need to get done today that will make me feel better about it, or that will kind of band-aid it until I can get to it? That's just always been a really good practice for me.
Yeah, I love the brain dump thing. I think that all too often we try to keep so much in our heads, and our brains are capable of so much, but there comes this like tipping point where you just have too much information that you're holding on to, and it has to go somewhere. Do you have a regular practice of brain dumping, or is that something where like it's a breaking point and then you do it?
No, I do it actually every single night. I do it for the next day. So, and to me, it's really helped my morning routine because I was in the mentality of kind of waking up and then having a little bit of anxiety as soon as you wake up to think, okay, what do I have to do today? And then maybe if you had an early morning and you woke up at your normal time, it's like you're already in rush mode. So I sit down at the end of every workday and I write out what I need to accomplish tomorrow. And I use the Emily Lay daily planner where it just lists it out by hour from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. And I fill in those blanks of what I'm going to be doing each hour. And then I can like go to bed knowing that I have a plan for tomorrow. And of course, things always come up. But my anxiety level has drastically decreased in the morning and allowed me to kind of take that time and take that breather, because so many people said like, oh, you need a, gratitude journal in the morning. You need to pray and meditate and do yoga. And I wasn't doing that because I immediately looked at my to-do list and it's like, oh, I have to dive into that. But if you map it out by hour and say like, oh, I have these 7 things that I have to do, but I have 7 hours in the workday that I can accomplish each one of those things, you can enjoy your morning a little bit more, and you can feel like you're going into it proactively rather than reactively.
I really like the idea of doing it at night, or in like at the end of the workday, because one, for me, it feels like it almost creates like bookends to your day, because I know that as entrepreneurs, it can be really easy to just keep working, right? Like and even if you stop working, like
Yes.
last night, I meant to keep working. And I ended up, I was like, I'm a little tired. I'm just going to take a 20-minute nap. Well, I ended up sleeping on the couch for like 4 hours. Clearly I needed it, but I never really had like an end to my workday. So there's something about having that as like the practice at the end, and then also freeing me up in the mornings, because I usually do my planning in the mornings, to then be with myself rather than focus on my doingness first thing in the day. So I really like that practice a lot. And there's something too for me, and maybe this is for you as well, is I do get that anxiety when I'm holding stuff inside of me. And there really is something about just like putting it on paper and seeing it and making it almost like tangible, rather than, I feel like when I keep stuff inside of me, it becomes a bigger deal than it actually is when I just put it on paper and I can like see the reality of it.
And I think it goes back to your point about being a visual person. When you are able to see that you have 10 lines and they represent each hour of the day, and 7 of them are filled up, it's like, oh, I have extra time in the day. I don't need to rush and get through all of this. And, something that I haven't quite nailed down and that I do need to work on is actually scheduling in blank time or blank space, because how often do things pop up, or you get an email and you think, I want to respond to this right now. I don't want to wait until that hour of the day. And so I really need to work on that aspect of being able to say, hey, from 4 to 5, I'm not going to schedule anything, because that's going to be my time to wrap up loose ends for the day and then prepare for the next day.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, I teach a lot about combining structure with flow in your business, because as women, we're naturally, like, we just naturally do very well with flow, but we also need that structure. We need that container in which to be in flow. And so I play a lot with this idea of structure and having, like, very clearly, I liken it to like a river, right? A river is able to flow in the direction that it flows because it has riverbanks. When a river crests its riverbanks, it just goes everywhere. Like, there's no direction to it whatsoever. So I was going to ask you about that. Like, how do you create that flow for yourself, or that blank space, or that time for, like, creativity and being more in that quote unquote, feminine energy than in the structure?
The time of being sheltered at home, quarantine, has really, I think, reminded people of that time, because I was one that if I was going to go for a walk, or even when I take a shower, it's like, turn on a podcast episode or turn on some music that's going to, bring my emotions, higher, make me happy. But how often have we actually, like, taken a walk in quiet? I mean, I'm one of those that I feel like if I'm going to take a walk, that's not productive enough. I need to add a level of listening to a podcast on it, because that's going to, I'm going to, kill two birds with one stone. But in this time, I've actually, been quiet and been able to reflect, and so many more ideas have come to me during that. And it's really reminded me of the purpose and the importance of quiet.
Yeah.
So many good things can come when you just quiet your mind. I mean, that old saying of, like, the best ideas come to you in the shower. Well, I don't even, like, let that happen. It's like I'm still listening to a podcast or listening to music or something. So just reminding you to be quiet.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are very uncomfortable with quiet. We've really grown to a society that's just constant, like, we just have constant stimulation going
Yes.
on. And it is true that there needs to be that space. I talk about with the universe can't, like, if your ears are constantly filled with information or music or things or conversations or stuff, the universe, like, can't really, it's hard for the universe to talk over that. It's hard for you to hear the signs and the creative moments and the ideas that want to present themselves to you if you're constantly distracted with other things. So I love that. I'm actually, so people that are listening to this is coming out a little bit later than our conversation, but tomorrow I'm going into Manhattan for the first time since March 10th. And it's going to be my last day in Manhattan proper, before I leave New York City to go back to Minneapolis. And what you just said really struck me deeply, because I normally would put my headphones in and listen to music while I'm walking, and the city is empty right now. And I just love the idea of, taking these words that you've said and disconnecting and just really being present with walking through an empty New York City and just letting myself soak in all of the energy of the city and all of the sounds of the city, which will be much more quiet than they usually are, but, like, letting myself steep in that energy before I leave again.
I love the phrase of giving yourself permission to pause. And that's truly what you're doing. And it's shocking that we have to give ourselves that permission, but it truly is something that you have to allow yourself and say to yourself, I'm giving you permission to pause. And it's the beautiful things that come out of that are what encourage you to do it time and time again. But until you truly do it and you see the benefits of it, you think, oh gosh, like what was I missing? What were all those walks about? What was I missing in that moment?
Yeah. And it's so great because I never would have considered it had we not had this conversation. I was actually supposed to go into the city today, but my appointment got moved. So I'm so grateful we're having this conversation because yeah, it literally wouldn't have happened otherwise. And I really think to the point you just made that we have glorified busyness and productivity so much in our world. And don't get me wrong, productivity is incredible. And to your point from the beginning, that's pushing down on the left pedal. Mm-hmm. And then the pause is pushing down on the right pedal. And we have to have both in order to live in that place of balance and alignment.
Get somewhere. I mean, you can't. If you stand still and you freeze, you're going to fall off. The balance will completely go to one side or the other. But in order to get to where you're going, you have to constantly have that act of left, right, or productivity, pause.
Yeah. For anyone that's kind of stuck in that like glorification, busy trap, what insights would you have around someone giving themselves permission to pause?
I think it goes back to that time of prayer or meditation, whatever that looks like, because it is something that's hard to do. And like your exact point of it makes us uncomfortable. So when you actually do schedule out a time that says, I'm going to meditate at 7 a.m. or I'm going to pray and do gratitude journaling, that actually structures out time in your schedule. I mean, it's just like working out. And they say, if you make that appointment for yourself in the day and you say, I'm not breaking that appointment, just like I wouldn't break an appointment with you, Bree. And so if you actually are able to structure that time in, and again, I don't have to skip over that to get to all the other things on my to-do list because it's a part of my day. And I've already allowed time in my day for it. So you don't skip over it like you would because there's more pressing issues to get to. But I mean, it really does go back to that self-care. And if you are able to remember that if you take care of yourself, you can do everything else better. As soon as you let your care be the last thing on your to-do list or your importance, your what you find to be the most important thing of your day, it becomes the very last and everything else falls underneath it too. So it just really is about, being intentional with your priorities.
Yeah, my workout this morning was 100% scheduled in my calendar, 100%.
Did you do it?
I did. Well, yes, my sister and I have been working out together on Zoom.
I love that.
So I have to do it. Yeah, total accountability. And I love scheduling this stuff first thing in the morning because I don't know about you, but when I get to the end of the day, like yesterday, right? I meant to lay down for a 20-minute nap and then I was like so tired, I just kept sleeping for 4 hours. And if I save my self-care for the end of the day, it just doesn't happen.
For sure. I mean, and that just goes to, I think even workouts, people say that's the same thing. There's almost a mental game that you have to think about it too. If you get it done in the beginning of the day, all day long, you can say, I've already done my workout. I'm so proud of myself. I did my workout. That's already checked off my list. And there's something about if you schedule it at the end of your day, knowing all day long, okay, you got to make sure you go. Don't skip it. Don't let this one you're constantly, again, in that reactive mode of, okay, I got to make sure I go. And you're just constantly playing that mind game. But if you knock it out at the beginning of the day, you feel good about yourself all day long. So it truly is like a psychological effect. And so I love knocking things out at the beginning of the day because that result stays with me for the rest of the day.
It is true that at 8:15 this morning, my Apple Watch told me I had already met my move goal and my exercise goal for the day. And I was like, I am killing today.
I don't have anything else that needs to be accomplished. That's good enough for me. I know. That's great.
I know. If I do nothing else for the rest of the day, I was already successful. Thank you, Apple Watch.
Yes.
There was something else that you said in there, and I totally forgot what it was that I wanted to address. This happens to me all too often. I don't know if this is just like getting older or if I just...
No, there's just too many good thoughts running around.
Seriously.
So that's fine.
Seriously. Well, I love all of this, and I really would encourage our listeners to schedule into the beginning of their day that time for themselves, that pause, that selfish time, as you say on your podcast. Any last thoughts about what we've talked about or success?
I think coming from what I do in my professional world, as far as being a publicist and working on marketing, what I always go back to is tell your story. And so with success, I think a lot of us can get wrapped up in our minds of, that imposter syndrome, or that whole idea of like, well, gosh, I didn't really do a whole lot. I mean, there's other people out there doing so much more than me. Tell your story. And success does mean so many different things to so many people. But if you find success in your own story, it's worth telling. And there will be somebody out there that will find from that they're able to inspire their journey. So I would encourage everyone to, regardless of what it looks like, make sure you're telling your story, whether that's on social media or to the media, but get your story out there because it's important and it's authentic to you. And there's no other story like yours.
Brilliant. Well, if people want to connect with you further or follow your journey, how do they find you?
I am on all social media networks at the Allie Martin, ALLIE Martin.
Love it. Thank you, dear. This was lovely.
Thank you, Bree.
Wait. Don't go yet. I wanted to say a quick thank you for joining me for this episode today. I am so incredibly grateful you are here. 2 last quick things. 1, I want to hear what's in your Success Diaries. So hop on over to Instagram, come find me at Bree Seeley to share with me what your definition of success is and how you're living that definition this week. Second thing, if you are an entrepreneur and you are looking to build or scale your tailor-made business to monetize your genius, I have a great free course I would love to share with you. You can grab it at breeseeley.com/yes. This course is really going to help you do all of the necessary work to build and scale a business that is aligned with your unapologetic self. Much love to you today and every day. I will see you next week on the Success Diaries, which also reminds me, please be sure to subscribe so that you can get this in your notifications every single week. Bye for now, friends.